As I was saying this morning, machine base, if you're facing the machine from my side, this will be your left-hand side pedestal. It's connected to the left side of the software. So whatever you read on the left is coming from this movement here. So we measure this movement peak to peak. Peak to peak means how far it can go in this direction to how far it can go in my direction. So not from the center, it's all the way peak to peak, all right? So if I read the software and it shows left side is making 25 mil, how you can understand this 25 mil? It's telling you your left-hand side pedestal is making a movement of 25 of 1,000 of an inch, peak to peak. Right side is a fixed side, you cannot move. It also has a fixed block. The left side has a height adjust. To adjust your height, you can crank it up. There is a wrench, a long wrench. You can crank it up. Once you're happy, you secure it with the 2 nuts. So it cannot go down back, all right? What you want to do, you want to first measure distance between your 2 journals, where you're going to spin your rotor, center of your journal to center of your right journal. You want to unlock your suspension. It's just a wrench and nuts, right? Loosen your left side pedestal. Adjust the distance between the pedestal. And then start loading your rotor in place. You want to be careful when you use a crane or so you don't drop it on your bearing. These are high precision bearings. They're very expensive bearings. You want to really take care of them, right? So you load it slowly to the 2 blocks. And once you're happy with the adjustment, you go back and lock your suspension. Okay, it's now locked. And then the next step is to secure your rotor from the 2 sides. As I was saying, these are called end thrust assembly. If you look at what we did yesterday, we were working here yesterday. I like always to have one side of the end thrust touching your shaft as it is right now. We bought a ball of a bearing, so you have only one point of contact. You don't have a service contact. Of course, this doesn't help much. If you have a small one, it's going to be a lot better. But you can see I have maybe 1/4 of an inch clearance from one side. Okay, we also have here what we call the foot-to-cell speed sensor, what reads the RPM. Also, you have as a safety what we call safety hold-down assembly. It's nothing but a safety tool. If this rotor decides for whatever reason fly out of the machine, this is going to keep it in place. It's really rigid enough to keep it in place. Right now, that's the best we can do. We're going to lock the belt tension assembly in place. And we're going to put tension on the belt. Yeah, you want to just do 2 drops, not too much oil. Every spin we're going to do 2 drops. Step number 1, we're going to create a new job, right? We're going to create a new job so we can refer to it in future. So step number 1 is new job. Right here, I'm going to touch new job. It's going to ask you, software is going to take by default a job number. I can always change it, or I can leave the job number to the by default, or you can add just a little description that says this is training. and save. So I saved a new job. Everything I'm going to do in this job is going to be saved for future reference. That's what we mean by the database. I can always recall it. I can do it again. I can send it to somebody to review it. I can do whatever I want. Once you're happy, step number 2 is rotor setup. And remember, we said in this screen, the software is going to guide you to the steps. This is where you want to do initial run, left side trial weight, right side trial weight, and then you get corrections, right? The first one to the left corner, when you do so, software gives you a nice green check mark on step number 1 and prompts you to step number 2, which is the initial run. If you ever did a mistake in step number 1 and you want to go back and re-choose your configuration, all what you have to do is just touch the green check mark in here, as I do now. It's going to ask you, do you really want to go back? You say, okay, yeah, I want to re-choose my selection. So it says, original run, we're ready to spin it up. As I always ask you to do, you probably want to be careful enough, lock suspension before you start spinning it up. We don't know how bad it is or how good it is. We don't know if it's going to really walk to the side or not. So suspensions are locked. My belt is tight. Everything looks fine to me. I'm going to go ahead and spin it. The drive is engaged and my speed selector is at 0. I can crank the speed gradually and take it up to speed. And as I do so, you see the software is ready to read the RPM and left and right reading. When you notice the drive as we kick the speed up and see the behavior of the drive, the problem I was talking about. So we're taking it up to speed gradually. I'm going to go back and make sure everything looks fine. So you see your RPM quite steady, is not fluctuating at all. And suspensions are still locked, so I'm going to go ahead and unlock suspension now. And then I'm going to take reading for initial run. There is a read hold button here. We're going to touch read. When you touch read, it goes to the sensors and capture your mils reading from the left, your mils reading from the right side. So I want to see readings are stable before you hold reading, before it's averaging, and you want to give it time to average itself so well. But I always look at the first decimal here. If it's steady enough, that's 1 of a 10 of a thousand of an inch. It's something you don't see by your naked eyes. So I'm going to hold it. And now it says you're ready for left trial weight. So I guess we're going to go ahead and stop it before we worry about the trial weight. In normal case scenario, I would hit the stop button and it's going to take it gradually to 0. But it's an older drive, it doesn't do this. It applies brakes, and I'm not going to do this. So I'm going to crank it back down to 0 first. And then maybe I can just do stop. Rotor is stopped. When it is stopped, it reads your angle in here. The angle is fed by the encoder, which is mounted at the back of your motor in here. This piece right here is called the encoder, which gives you your angle. It's coupled to the drive, so if the drive doesn't rotate, it doesn't see your angle, right? So if you push it by hand and it doesn't spin the drive pulley, then you're not reading anything, okay? So what we do, And this is a problem of the drive too. So we have to keep it on run to be able to turn it. Normally we don't do this, but we have to do this. Now if I spin it by hand, you're going to see your angle changing. And I want to go back to 0, and 0 is when reflective tape cuts the light here. And that should be your 0 now. Now it's asking you to install left trial weight. If you have no idea what should be the trial weight, you start with recommended trial weight. When you touch recommended trial weight, the first thing it's asking you to do is to enter radius for the trial weight. How far you're going to apply the trial weight from your center of the shaft. 3.5 inches diameter. So radius will be 1 3/4. Right, so I'm going to go in here and say my radius left side is 1.75 and go back to recommended trial weight. Now it's asking me 2 more questions. It's asking you what is the weight of your rotor in pounds. We assumed 150 pounds, I think. And what is the balancing speed? We're balancing it at 650 RPM. It's not going to show you trial weight until you close the calculator. I know it's a tricky thing, but just close this calculator and now magically you have a reading for the recommended trial weight, which is showing 63 grams for the left side.
That's monstrous.
So maybe 40 grams is good enough. And we're going to fix 40 grams at 0 for the left side. Okay, so we enter the information for the left trial weight, 40.6 gram. I'm putting it at 0 degree at 1.75 inches from the center of the shaft. Software says you're okay, press next. And I'm gonna crank the speed up back to 650. We're back to the 650 RPM. We're gonna hold it. And no, it's not a good trial weight. Now you see what it looks like if your trial weight is not enough. Easiest thing to do, we're gonna go back. It says here, okay, attention, your trial weight is not making 30%. I'm gonna say, okay, it's gonna prompt me back to the trial weight. And the easiest thing to do is just to add more weight. So we're gonna see like 10, maybe 10 gram more or 20 gram more. That's 9
Almost
points.
another 10 grams. So
And you're gonna tape it exactly at the same place, if you can. So we added another 9.6 gram, which makes it 50.2. Okay? And we're gonna say next, and we're gonna take it up again, back to the 650 RPM, and read. I really hope so. We're down to 1.4.
Close, man. You have to be close.
We'll see what happens.
150.
All right.
No.
Remove left trial weight, install right trial weight. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you to remove left side trial weight. I can use the same weight or I can choose to use a different weight. It's my decision. The software trying to help you out. It copied all the dimensions of all the information to the right side. So I don't see why we shouldn't use the same weight. Still using the same 50.2 gram. We're still at 0. The only difference I want to do here, I want to consider half the thickness of the weight. So what do you guys say this half is?
Probably quarter inch, so about 125.
Yeah, I would say 100 thou, maybe an eighth of an inch kind of thing. The thing's, I'll measure it for sure, okay? Yeah, that's pretty close to a quarter inch. So about an eighth of an inch.
1/8 is 0.125. Okay. So that will make it a 1.9. Almost.
Closer.
Okay.
So you hit C
875.
first on that pad. You were hitting
1.875.
Yeah. C.
C.
1.9.
25,000.
And it says press next to prepare for reading. Don't forget to unlock suspension. And we're gonna take the speed up to 650 RPM again. Within 10 RPM are not so bad. Read. So for the right side, we had 0.7. We're up to 1.4. That's twice the magnitude. I'm confident it's gonna take it. Readings are stable in here, and we're gonna hold it. And yes, indeed, it is okay. So the first thing, we removed the right side trial weight. Okay. Before we leave this screen, let's just look at the two corrections briefly. It says, based on everything you did, you're missing 140 gram on the left side at 28 degrees, right? And you're missing a 62 gram right side on 185 degrees. And if you look at the angle of the left side, you see it's asking you to do a correction at 28 degrees. Correct. It's exactly where your keyway is. Okay. So the first thing we want to do now, we want to bring it to the 28 degrees it's asking us to do correction at. So to do so, I'm going to just engage the drive. If you please turn it very slow to 10 degrees, 16, 20, 22, 25. Here you go. So when you get within the correction angle, it turns green. And now we're going to go and get 140 gram and see how we can apply 140 gram. We're also going to do a correction at the right side. It's asking you for a correction of 62 gram at 185 degrees. We did corrections, two corrections left and right. We're ready to spin it up, but the last step before we actually spin it up, we want to set the tolerances. We talked about tolerances this morning. So before you do anything, we don't know if it's in tolerance or not, or how far out. We go back to menu where it says balance quality. Balance quality is the tolerances. Balance quality, if you use the specifications, there is the ISO, there is the API, there is everything you need to do. We're going to use ISO 21940-11, grade 2.5. It's a great way to start. It took already your rotor weight from a previous entry. Now it's asking you for service speed. We're going to assume it's 1800 RPM. No, 650 is the balancing speed. Somebody asked me about dimensions. It's here we enter the dimensions right now. To calculate the tolerance, to allocate tolerance between left and right, it needs you to enter how far is your correction from the left, how far is your correction from the right plane. So, okay, let's see how we measure it. So it's asking you how far is your left correction from the center of the bearing here.
You know what? That is really, really close to 6 inches.
6 inches. And then it's asking you, so from the center of the bearing to the center of the weight, 6 inches.
I'm assuming this roller's in the center also.
Right,
but
and also for the right side, how far is the right side from the left bearing?
From there.
So from the left, we're about 38 inches from here.
Awesome.
So for the right side, it's this dimension here, okay?
Okay, yeah.
So
38 and 6. Yeah.
I'm gonna come in here. This is tricky if you don't take notes or try to remember it. A and B. Michael, come here, please.
Move over so we can all see together.
So we entered ISO 21940-11, grade 2.5, rotor weight, actual service speed, and now I need to enter A and B. It's clear in the illustration here. So you press edit, enter A, 6 inches, B, 38 inches, and save.
Okay, gotcha.
Next step, it still did not allocate left and right. It's asking you for one more thing, which is, where are your bearing journals? When we started, I told you we should mount bearing journals right on the bearing here. So this is 0 because I assume journal is already on the bearing, so this is 0. And the right side is how far the two pedestals together, which is 48.
That's pretty decent. Good.
So again, A dash and B dash are bearing journals.
Yep.
I'm gonna hit edit. A dash is 0, I'm not gonna change it. B dash is already calculated from the center of gravity 49 inches, but I can always change it. We measured 48 inches, so I'm gonna do it at 40 inches. Save. And right now it already calculated your tolerance for left and right. It says 14 gram inches left, 20 gram inches right. There is a slight difference between left and right. It's probably because this is not exactly centered in the machine. So right now I'm gonna activate the tolerance, turn it on. This will allow the software to tell me, okay, you're green, you're in tolerance or not. And go back to balance. So we're white, we're not green.
Okay.
And it says your left side is almost 12 times your maximum tolerance. 12 times your maximum tolerance. So tolerance is here. Your residual unbalance is here. Your right side is not so bad. It's only 3 times your maximum tolerance. The last thing now is to spin it up and see if we did good corrections or not. Right? So I'm going to unlock suspension. And I'm going to spin it up again to we had 2.2 left side, we're down to 0.6.
We're under 1.
As I always said, we always read Mills reading first.
Yeah.
We had 0.7, we're down to 0.3. So for a first correction, it's not so bad. We're gonna hold it and we're gonna stop it. It's asking you for a second correction. And remember, we didn't do the entire correction first. Not because I don't want to do the entire correction, it's just because we're using a different radius than what we should use. All right? But right now, the angle for the left side didn't change much. It went from 28 degrees to 20 degrees, so it's just still asking you to add more weight to the left side. So I'm going to go back to the left side at 20 degrees. Or 28, just add more weight. Okay, now we work on the right side. We're gonna get to 180, I think. And it's again where we did second correction, 2 corrections at the same time.
Yep.
We're ready to spin it up and take final reading.
How much do?
No, but he's showing how you.
Yeah,
how it-
absolutely. How you can redo it? There you go. Yeah. Woo. Left side.
We got to the ISO 2.5
Yep.
tolerance. At this point, there are 2 things to do once I'm satisfied with the results. The first thing I want to remember is to save everything I did. And by going in menu, where you started at job information, and close this keyboard and save it. So if I ever want to see this job again, which is called the training in here, right? I can recall it. I can see what I did, trial weights, what was the initial and final, and everything else. The second thing we want to do is we want to generate a report. A report, I can take it by a thumb drive, print it, email it, view it on the screen or so. So to print a report, you simply have to go to the print icon. This is a balance certificate. It allows you to enter a few lines here if you would like to, name and training. We're going to just call this training. And so on. Once you're happy, you can just generate a balance certificate. And you can make a PDF. So this is what it looks like. It tells you this is your configuration. These were your dimensions. This was your initial unbalance. This your final unbalance. And this is the tolerance you used. And you are in tolerance.
Does it say how much weight we put on each side? I just can't see from here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Nice.
So you can generate a PDF file, and it's going to ask you for a file name. We're going to call it training. Training 2021. Save. So if you go back here in saved reports, you can see your training here. You can select it, you can view it, or you can move it to a thumb drive and have it printed or emailed from your computer.